listener, and welcome to the Metacast by Naavik. We're recording a very special Crypto Corner today. I'm joined by Brooke and Seb Park, and it's live. So if you listened or looked at the previous episode, the roundtable we did, we're still at GDC. So this is Crypto Corner GDC version. So we'll talk a bit about GDC. My voice is, as you might start hearing, I might fall away for a bit. That's because things are loud here, and I have had to scream to get myself heard at certain parties and at certain events. So apologies in advance for that. So I'm Nico. I'm an investor at Bitcraft Ventures, and I'm happy to be the host, so I can talk to these awesome dudes here. And then, Will, you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah. Thanks for having me, guys. It's great to be here. I'll introduce myself. I'll be very quick. I'm Will Brooke. I lead gaming at OpenSea. So yeah, pumped to talk all things gaming, NFTs, everything else.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, hey, I'm Seb Park. I'm a co-founder of Infinite Canvas and a venture partner at Bitcraft, focusing mostly on user-generated gaming, Web3, blockchain, gaming. I mean,
all the degen stuff.
All the degen stuff. My voice is great because I don't party as hard as Nico, so I'm good to go.
Dude, I was in bed early, these were dinners, not even parties. Let's kick things off. I mean, we finally have the chance to have someone on the podcast who's intimate with what's going on at OpenSea. So it's interesting I'm just interested to get like a bit of the insights that you can share of what's going on inside. But maybe like, as people that are listening are mostly involved with games, like what does gaming at OpenSea mean, and what is your, like, how do you look at different games, and could you share a bit more about that?
Yeah, of course. So right now we sort of work with or touch every game that is building on the blockchains that we support. So, Ethereum, Polygon, Clayton. What does it mean? Number one, if you have a game that has NFTs on those blockchains, like, your NFTs are probably touching OpenSea. People are probably buying and selling and, sending and all that via OpenSea. So, that kind of happens, like, for better or for worse, automatically. Like, a lot of traffic is funneled to OpenSea, and it's a great place for users to sort of like get exposed to new content and, learn about what's going on. I think gaming is, one content vertical of many at OpenSea. Like, most people, or a lot of people, I think of it as like art and collectibles and PFPs, right? Like that's what sort of, blew the doors off this ecosystem. But originally, I think myself and definitely like our founding team was thinking that gaming was what was going to be like, that was like going to be the watershed moment, because NFTs, like, in a lot of ways, at least for some folks, like the analogs to gaming and digital assets in gaming, it's very familiar. Like, we grew up with items, and we grew up with characters and avatars and things like that. So now we're seeing all kinds of gaming activity sort of happen and proliferate. Like, there's this sort of second wave coming in beyond PFPs, beyond art, where users are all about like NFTs with utility, like, beyond just the JPEG or beyond just, a lot of the meme content. Like, what can I do with it? What kind of access does it get me? Can I use it in a virtual space or a virtual world? Like this sort of concept, like innovating on what an NFT is and what kind of utility it gets me. Like, gaming is the sort of ultimate use case for that.
So for people who don't know, like, how big is OpenSea? Is OpenSea eBay? Is it Sotheby's? Is it literally every single, all of the above? Is it Amazon?
This is a good question. I mean, in the NFT space, right? Like, maybe it is some of those bigger players where, that's the comp where, and OpenSea sells everything, right? So, just like, the everything store, which is sort of like the aspiration of, and what Amazon has kind of built itself into, and, similar to eBay, right? You can kind of get a little bit of everything on there. So maybe in those senses, that's the case, but obviously, it's kind of a different cultural ethos, or like, the NFT ecosystem is a lot different than, those where we try to have like a very, very close relationship with the community. And it's like, things move so quickly that, what's popular today may be like not so popular tomorrow, or like something new comes in and you see all these like surges of excitement. So it's obviously a huge company in terms of scale and sort of, users, like we're seeing that grow volume, of course, but maybe like I don't know, maybe like I don't know. I don't want to tie us too closely to any of those, but yeah, it's fun.
Can you give us an idea about how big gaming is within OpenSea percentage wise? Is it half? Is it way more, way less?
Yeah. So NFT volumes overall last year, gaming was something like 30 to 40%, which I don't know if people like would guess that, but
yeah, I would guess a lot lower.
Right.
Like that's a lot.
It is, and a lot of that is definitely virtual world driven and
right.
land sales, but
speculation.
Yeah, exactly. OpenSea is mirrors pretty closely like that sort of trend, so it's actually already a huge part of OpenSea's market share, which again I don't think something that folks really know too well.
What's the percentage of total GameFi market share that OpenSea has?
That's a good question. I think it's a hard one to answer because of the sort of multi-chain ecosystem.
Right.
Especially when you start to bring like layer 2s into the mix, and different scaling solutions. I don't know exactly off the top of my head. I would hazard it's pretty high on Ethereum and Polygon, which we support, but I don't know overall.
Dope.
Yeah, cool. I was also wondering, from the volume per project, like on average, do you have any insights you can give us on like what happens, let's say the first 2 weeks after the initial mint and after, like volume wise? Do you have any insights on that?
Yeah, I think I'll give like a somewhat unsatisfactory answer, which is like it varies so significantly by project. There tends, let's say like the average project that has like it's fairly well hyped, it has a lot of community interests, like it's a good founding team, exciting project. Like there's always a lot of energy around the mint moment, as we know, as we've all probably participated in. You see then an immediate surge of activity afterwards on the secondary markets where, a lot of folks that couldn't participate in that mint, that's their way to buy in. You have the folks that are obviously, minting to try to, for more financial reasons, maybe than utility when it comes to, actually playing the game and stuff like that. And so you tend to see those folks often cycle out as, the folks that have more conviction about the longer term game or actually excited about gameplay, sort of then come in via secondary. But then you tend to see it settle down a little bit after that first few days, unless it's something that, interest is way over total supply of sort of what they brought to market.
So I've been thinking a lot about, and I've been speaking to a lot of folks here at GDC about this, and I'd love to have your takes on this. So it seems like there's a world where games on the blockchain all go in a direction of having a certain game loop with an economy around it, where the North Star of the team that designs the game is going to be maximizing the amount of trading that happens on a secondary market, because that's where the revenues are gotten from. If you look, for example, at a game like Axie Infinity, they have, I think, for the moment, two main sources of revenues. One is the trading of Axies, and the second is the fees that you pay to breed a new Axie. And so, like, what do you think about this? Do you think this makes sense? Is this, going to be the new business model of gaming within Web3? Sebastian?
Yeah, I mean, it seems like a first order versus second order effect, right? Like, I mean, if you tell people, hey, the current marketplace's monetization loop is based on transaction fees, then people will design games that are in that mode, right? Like, and if it's reminiscent of like the first wave of NFT gaming or NFTs, where it's like all the money came from the mint. And so you saw, okay, well, we're going to charge 0.5 ETH for a mint. And we do 1,000 times and get 500 ETH.
And we're rich.
And then we're good, right? And then now it's like, actually, as the meta has shifted to people being like really low, 0.001, 0.01 mint costs, then now they're like, we're designing this to be traded rapidly so that it's using the trading volume as a way to generate liquidity and monetization. My expectation is that, like, at the end of the day, it's just a meta play. It's not actually a good way to design a game. And there are games that are going to be good for it, but there are going to be people who figure out newer things, right? So there are like stake to burn mechanisms. There are just burn mechanisms where you hold enough of the treasury such that if your game actively burns enough of the things that you've created, it will increase the value by decreasing supply without any artificial demand being built in. Like, it seems as though it would be a very, very bad equilibrium if we only have trading games in blockchain GameFi.
But don't you think, if peer-to-peer trading will be key within most blockchain games?
I mean, I think social dynamics are important, but I would be hesitant to say that. I mean, like, if you told me a year ago this is what GameFi would look like in 2022, I wouldn't have believed you, right? Like, it was like, is this just like one of many outcomes that could have happened? Mm-hmm. I think similarly, if we look forward to 2023, I'd imagine we're going to go through a quarter or two of really heavy development on a very peer-to-peer trading and trading as a social mechanic gameplay style of games. But then we'll start seeing other things. And it's just like whoever figures out the next thing. And it's just like a race in terms of what the equilibrium is. But I'd be like incredibly surprised. Like, I would be like stupidly surprised if this is the Nash equilibrium that makes the most sense for everyone.
Okay. Instead of calling it the Nash equilibrium that makes sense for everyone, maybe the game mode or the economic model or the blockchain monetization model that accrues the most revenues, where the biggest games will actually come out.
Yeah, that's probably a better way to describe it than using fancy words and a university degree.
What do you think, Will?
Yeah, I think I think it can be like secondary peer-to-peer trading. That can be like the model that drives the most revenue.
It's good for you, no?
Which is great for us and great for consumers as well, I think. Like, but what's nice is that can exist in harmony with like, a version of the current model that we see today, where it's all about live service games, it's all about new content. Like, you can continue to have that new content like come in, and if that content's compelling enough, you'll have a secondary market for it. But that can represent some incremental revenues for a publisher or for a developer. But you're probably still going to have that content flywheel because you have to still keep your users engaged, and so you're still going to have new stuff hitting the market. And so you can almost have the exact same model that you have today, but now users can get their hands on content and trade, and the value will be driven by how cool are the assets and do people want them, and how limited is supply. So there's a little more supply and demand dynamics with how you might think about bringing new content to market to maybe try to incentivize that. But I think you'll probably see some games where it's more about what new content is coming to keep people excited. Attention spans are short. Then you may see some games like if they're built that way, that may be a little more incentivized for like peer-to-peer trading.
What would you do if, for example, in Elden Ring, you have those runes you can equip, if those are just sold on OpenSea, right? Like, let's say it wasn't against the TOS of Elden Ring and that it was a blockchain-based game, would the majority of revenue that's generated by Elden Ring come from the exchange of runes, or would it be that they're generating runes consistently?
So you're already seeing this actually with runes, where people are, obviously like outside of the Elden Ring ecosystem, like getting on forums or Discord or whatever, like finding folks. They'll meet up in real life, drop off a rune for someone. They'll pay cash, outside the game, or Venmo, or whatever it is. And so this is happening already. So the question, if you enable this in game, how does that change things? I think like, folks that want it bad enough are doing it now. So as a developer, maybe like you do sort of build that in. I think the key is like, you have to be very, this is something folks, worry about today is like, play to win, right? Pay to win, excuse me. Like, this has always been like a buzzy term, but you have to be so much more careful in this ecosystem. If you're going to intentionally build those mechanics into your game. And for a single player like Elden Ring, doesn't really matter. Like, difficulty also in that game is, not really like a rational concept. But it can be managed. Just it's sensitive. It's sensitive. You have to balance that sort of thing, and you add a lot of complexity when you bring in tokens and peer-to-peer trading and things like that.
It's interesting because it seems just a gray market of rune trading. If they were taking like a 3.5% like fee, it seems it's like a one direction trade. Like, a person who buys the rune doesn't then resell the rune. But in that trade, there's probably been like, I'd imagine, hundreds of thousands of dollars, maybe millions of dollars of volume of like runes on Elden Ring, because it's like a pain, it's a grind. I don't want to do it. Nico and I have been on the road for multiple weeks. No one has time to play this game. Well, you've been on the road for multiple weeks too.
Yeah,
so.
yeah.
I'm 50 hours into Elden Ring, man. I know what you're talking about. I don't know where I found the time. But, have you guys been playing?
Yeah. I mean, not as much as I would like, but yes.
Dude, when I'm getting home, my Sunday is blocked for time with my wife and some Elden Ring.
Why not both at the same time, right?
That is something I'm working on, sir. It's I'm not there yet, but I'm trying to find some games where we can play together.
I think it's a highly watchable game. You know, hang out with my friends in Discord and just watch them stream and
Nice.
get their ass kicked.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Feel like to see and watch human suffering and frustration, I guess. So you guys have both been, seeing a lot of hotel lobbies over the past few days here at GDC. What are kind of your learnings you've taken away for blockchain gaming as a whole?
By the way, like if you read Twitter sentiment, you would have thought that no one at GDC would have cared about blockchain. Everyone would have hated it, right? And you walk around to any of the hotels or any of the events around the city, and everyone, even people who I follow on Twitter, who are actively, I'm thinking of a better non-curse word.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, poo-pooing on blockchain, right? They're all asking, it's like, so what is this? How do we do this? What is this, right?
How do I make money of this?
Right. It's super interesting because I haven't seen that kind of zeitgeist movement since free-to-play, which I think has given me a lot more confidence personally that this is actually a proper movement. Because I remember 10 years ago when free-to-play was taking off, people were like, free-to-play is awful, right? Like, we'll never do that. It's like pay to win, like Will said. But then people were like, wait, actually, that's not the case. Like, this is actually a really engaging thing. There's so many cool things to see. And so I think that's been the coolest thing I've seen on the floor.
Yeah. How are you, Will?
Yeah, GDC has been a ton of fun. I think the number one thing I've seen is traditional gaming, more interest from traditional gaming players, whether that's the developers themselves, the publishers, or developers with that sort of background, AAA background, mobile background, moving into this space. And it's super exciting for me because I'm a little wary of the projects that are building for, they see the money entering the space and they're building to try to be opportunistic and capture that. And they're not focused on gameplay first. And when you think about mass adoption of this sort of technology and mass onboarding of users into this space, it's not rocket science. It's going to be a game that has a great gameplay loop that's a ton of fun, that appeals to a lot of these user archetypes. You have people now that play for social reasons, people that play to explore, to achieve, that want to win. Now you have these new archetypes with NFTs, players that play to collect, sometimes players that do play to invest. And I think you're going to need folks with the ability to build for the former, those archetypes, to be able to then marry with those later archetypes, the collector, the investor, and that sort of combination in harmony is what's going to really knock the socks off the space and I think cause it to explode.
Do you have a project you remember from last year that you're hopefully it's set by now, where you're yo, I remember how bad this project was in 2021?
Yeah, I won't flame them directly, considering they're still,
around.
They're still around, they're still building, and they're still selling. But yeah, it was an early project that classic story. The roadmap, promised a lot, and I think I didn't do enough looking under the hood to understand again, who's the team that's building it, right? What's their what's their experience like? And so yeah, I rode the hype train and have felt the pain since. So there's obviously a lot of memes for rugs and stuff like that. This wasn't quite a rug. It's just
it was just incompetence.
Yeah, me not doing my own research. Yeah.
Always do your own research, and I mean, Sebastian and I, in Bitcraft, we know very well that the team in the end is everything, right?
Yeah, 100%.
Doing good diligence on who the hell is actually telling the story and then having to execute all that stuff is key. Cool. Yeah. So Will, I mean, I'm just also interested to learn more about your, how did you end up doing gaming at OpenSea, right? So how does one end up there? Do you have a gaming background? Are you, one of those, as we call, crypto natives? Please tell us.
Yeah. Definitely not a crypto native. I think my crypto and NFT journey started in 2020 around the pandemic, when I found myself with more time at home and when a lot of people sort of found their way into this space. But my background before that, always been a gamer at heart. I think, every one of those major games over the last 20 years, I feel like I've played and I've loved and I've shared with friends. So I was a Nintendo guy like early on, especially Super Nintendo into N64 and Mario games, and Super Smash Brothers were, my love language. And then, I moved on to PC, like early stages of Counter-Strike, and played Age of Empires, onto Halo, and then onto World of Warcraft, and RuneScape before that, and League of Legends when that was peaking as I was starting college. So I've always been a massive fan and lover of games. Professionally, I moved in more recently. I started out as a consultant at a firm called McKinsey, and then later it was like, what am I doing here? I think I built the business like sophistication I needed. I knew how to be a professional in a job, and
to make a slide deck.
That's the classic consultant skill set right there. Work a little Excel and a little PowerPoint. And I think I also then came to recognize like the impressive like business that is gaming, like the scale of the ecosystem. There's all kinds of interesting opportunities. So that was the moment that I decided to take the leap. And so first off, I started out by again moving this consulting background into some personal consulting with some Fortune 500 companies that were interested in gaming, Coca-Cola, Dick's Sporting Goods, things like that. And then eventually made the actual jump into gaming, joined EA, and was at EA for a few years before joining OpenSea. And joining OpenSea was learned about NFTs in the context of gaming, saw some folks building and saying, hey, here's what you can do with an NFT in your game. Here's what actual ownership might mean for you. Kind of went down the rabbit hole as a lot of us do. And, it's a longer story as to, my pitch to OpenSea and how I landed there, but that's kind of what brought me here.
Sick. So really a gamer then.
Yes.
Are we saying gaming native? Is that a thing now?
Just nerds now.
Just nerds? Yeah. There we go.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm proud to be. Yeah. Cool, man. That sounds really cool. What is for you, because you just talked about ownership of in-game assets, what is kind of the next level, what like next to that, what excites you about this blockchain technology, what it could bring to gaming?
Yeah, I think at its core, I talk about being a gamer. The amount of money and time and energy I've sunk into these games, I don't know if it's sank or sunk, it's probably sunk into these games. It's so significant, right? Like, you don't want to look at my time played on, World of Warcraft or some of this stuff. That was a ton of fun and I value that a lot. But my sort of personal like ROI, or like what do I have to show from all that time and experience besides maybe some great friends? It's not a lot. And I think, if you can enjoy that same sort of experience, those same sort of amazing moments where, you have an opportunity to channel that time into earning, you have opportunity to channel that time into collecting or, leveling up your items, and like, that investment that you put in, you can then do something with it. Right. So you can, yes, you can, sell it to someone else, but, there's with UGC, which obviously like, all about, like, there's so many opportunities to like, if you invest time and you create content and you build an ecosystem to other people like participating in, now you have a way to monetize that. You have a way to engage with players in different ways in terms of, token gating experiences with NFTs and things like that. There's just all kinds of interesting, utility, both financial and like social and community, that different kinds of experiences that you can build, I think, that you haven't been able to before.
Mm-hmm. Next thing I wanted to ask you is, and both of you guys, right? We've been seeing a lot of different gaming companies, approach, I guess, all three of us when telling their stories. What is, like, personally, I've been making in my head a distinction between Web 2.5 gaming companies and Web 3 gaming companies. Does that resonate?
How do you define that? Like, what's a 2.5 versus a 3?
So for me, to the point that Will just made, I think blockchain technology used for games allows for more than just like turning, first-person shooter gun skins into NFTs, right? It is, for me, Web3 is a mindset shift. It is, turning the game into an economy, but also giving your players ownership of the game and, like a piece of the pie. And for me, Web3 is, we've done research of this on this at Baycroft, and we saw that an average game company at the point of their IPO is 45% owned by the team and 55% owned by investors. A typical blockchain gaming company is 15% owned by the team, 15% owned by investors, and then they have rewards for staking, rewards for contributors, rewards for the communities. They have some liquidity tokens held for liquidity, and so basically you're as an investor or as a founder, you're taking a smaller piece of the pie, but you're building a larger pie. And so I've seen quite a lot of companies that I would categorize as Web 2.5, and that is, we're in the Web 2 mindset, but we do NFTs as well. And then a few Web 3 companies that are like, we're all in, we understand this shit. We know that, our players want to have a say. In our Discord, we engage with them. We let them, participate in the economy. We try to engage them as much as we can. We look inside our community to people that contribute, and we reward them with the tokens. We align incentives, and we design the game to be something fun for everyone. So yeah, these are things that I've been seeing, but I'd love to have your thoughts on that as well.
Yeah. I think there's a mix. I think there's this perception that these like Web 2 gaming companies, they're totally demonized at this point by the gaming audience. Like any mention of the word NFT, tied to a big gaming brand, and there's a really negative reaction. I think I am seeing them want to like activate in this space in an authentic way. Like they want to do it right. Of course they want to make money, but I see genuine interest. I think you raised a very good point though, where, they want to do it in the right way, but how much from a mindset perspective are they living in the Web3 world when they understand more beyond just the digital item that you have today is now an NFT and I can capture a secondary royalty. Right. Like they want those to be cool content. They want it to be, unique and exciting, but, not all of them have really like gone through that mindset shift yet. And I think there's definitely a lot of room for growth when it comes to like, are you building the same thing with NFTs, or are you building, an experience that looks a lot different?
I was talking to a content company yesterday, or a couple of days ago now. I don't know if we reveal what day we're recording this, but it was during GDC. And the person was like, so why are you interested in metaverse? And they're like, so our company missed the internet. Like, I was like, wait, what? Yeah, no, like we're really doing well in the 90s. And we just missed this whole internet thing. It just didn't work out for us. And so we have a directive to not miss like whatever the next internet is. And this is it. But what's interesting is that it seems impossible for them to have caught the internet, right? Because these things are inherently disruptive. These things are inherently changes the dynamic. And what you're saying is, hey, it's weird where companies are trying to do this but unable to. And I think part of it is because when you design a company, it's like designing any type of system, you design it with your KPIs in mind. And it's really hard to disrupt those KPIs if you're not designed to capture it. Free-to-play gaming is a great example. Free-to-play gaming is defined by massive top-of-funnel user acquisition, really good mid-funnel retention mechanisms, and bottom-of-funnel monetization. Right, that is the frame of reference that every game is made. And if you just immediately try to put that into a ownership model where you give everyone top of funnel ownership of this thing, the game just doesn't make money anymore. And so what you've really done is disrupted away your revenues and your company. If you do that, if you're like free to play mobile publisher who does specifically that type of games loop. And so I totally think that people want to make sure that they have this. And I certainly think after GDC, people are going to go home and be like, we may be wrong about blockchain. We might be wrong about Web3. And there's going to be a lot more excitement about it. It won't be public. It'll just be people working on it. But I don't really blame people for trying. But I do believe that if it actually is disruptive and not just an add-on that we could just put on everything, that it will disrupt things. And so therefore, people just won't be able to do it.
Yeah, and this is a good segue into talking about like IP. And if you have an existing IP portfolio, like what IP do you use when you think about like moving to this new space? And when you have that fear of cannibalization of your existing model, and when you're worried about like disrupting the funnel and all these things, yeah, it probably means you're going to go to market with a minimalist approach in terms of, how innovative are you really being when it comes to, blockchain and Web3 and NFTs versus, I think, new IP maybe gives you a little more freedom, but comes with the trade-off of you're having to build a new brand and it's in this new space that, again, is a little bit polarizing and, in a lot of ways is hard to understand and hard to onboard. So I'm seeing a lot of publishers struggle with like that sort of trade-off.
It's also funny because I still think a lot about 7 years ago when AR geofence gaming became big with Pokemon Go.
Yeah.
And I can't help but think that we learned just a lot more about how powerful Pokemon is than we did about geofencing or AR. And so one of the cool things about blockchain this time around, because remember, like, it's easy in hindsight to say, hey, VR isn't quite there yet. But at the time, like I remember GDC 2016, everyone was talking about VR as though it was like going to disrupt everything. And people were like, yeah, like everything's going to be on VR. It's going to be the craziest thing in the world. If you don't have a full-fledged hardware team in Croatia that's already building hardware in China, you're 5 years behind the curve, despite the fact that no one's really ever 5 years behind the curve. I wonder about that because to your point, there are new IPs. And those IPs are going to have the ability to succeed. And one of the things that you think about from venture, but also from OpenSea is like, you get to be agnostic about which of the IP things do well because you support everyone, right? Like you're like, hey, be on our platform. We'll support you. We'll go from there. But on the flip side is if you're an individual game developer or if you're a publisher or if you're someone who's like in the Web 2 or Web 1 space, you're making that leap could destroy your company. And that's a hard argument to make to your board. Yeah, so we tried this NFT thing and destroyed our company. And if we actually look back and look at some companies, I have to dig them out, some people who made that type of leap towards VR did in fact destroy their company because they had a good product, they leaped to VR, the world wasn't ready, and then COVID happened. And so all this like in-person VR stuff that was starting to take trend lines in Asia just all died. And so it sucks.
Yeah, I mean, I think like that's why you'll see this like crawl, walk, run model, right? Where like people just dip their toes into the water, which, maybe doesn't represent the maximum potential of what this could be or what it like will evolve to. But that's totally true. And you're right. I think like when we think about we support everyone, but we partner with some, right? With OpenSea, like conviction is sort of an important component of that. Like it's not a recipe for success if it's a small team within a publisher like pushing for this and wanting to do it, but like the leadership of the company is not aligned, or at the first mention of a consumer or one of their lifelong users saying, oh, I don't like this, that they then like knee jerk back. And so there is a little bit of like, you got to meet us in the middle in terms of like, we're here to help you and we want to help you guys be successful. Like it's good for us if your, game explodes, and it's good for everyone, but like, you're going to have to lean in and do it the right way.
Do you talk to brands and companies about, hey guys, just so you know, your audience may not be like super enthusiastic about this?
I say it now, but now they're all aware. Okay. They've seen some of the examples, and some of those examples the execution was lacking or I think not thought through well. Some of those examples were quite creative, like really good content, interesting stuff, and still had a similar reaction. So that's kind of a funny thing. There's the blanket reaction, which is negative right now. So you have to sort of have the emotional fortitude to push back that if you again have alignment, if you believe you're building something that like is quality, and assume that people will catch up or be willing to take the risk.
It feels like and I might be wrong, but that's what it appears to me is that the higher up in the hierarchy of large companies, the more people are in favor, it seems, of blockchain technology, and the less they are like, oh, you're talking about blockchain. Okay, I'm just going to walk away silently because I don't want to talk about this. You agree?
Yeah, they've a lot of the higher ups at these companies have been in gaming for a while. They've seen, to Sebastian's point earlier, they've seen the change in business model over time. They've seen premium go to premium plus DLC, go to free to play, go to live service battle pass. They've seen all these transitions, and they've seen the consumer sentiment every time, even in cases where in some ways, blockchain technology is a lot more opaque, and like the value prop can, depending on the situation, can be a little more confusing. But free to play, like your game that cost you $60 before is now free, and it's in the best cases like still the full game. That should be like a huge win for consumers. Right. But you saw a lot of backlash, and sometimes it was because of opportunistic publishers really being greedy, but that sort of stuff settles out, right? There's all kinds of opportunistic people in the NFT space
for sure
being greedy, and like that stuff, I believe, will settle out in the same way.
Yeah, and that's a really good point too, right? Because if you had a $60 price point game, or at the time it was probably like closer to $50, that's a different model, right? Your marketing spend is way ahead of your game launching, right? Like you're marketing for years, you're taking on tens of millions of dollars of burn before the project launches. And now we see in Web3 especially, we see a lot of projects that it's like Kickstarter on crack. Like there's like a bunch of Kickstarter games where they're like, yo, we're going to make the next Magic the Gathering. Please give us money. And they get funded for a couple $1 million because they have a couple cool graphics. Like, and then they hopefully build a game. And sometimes, not saying any space game, it just doesn't deliver 7 years out. And I think similarly in blockchain, that's a little bit like on the crazier side of this, where it's like, yeah, like actually, you've done at least a little bit more of the work, and you get a lot more money as a result, and the money then funnels into ownership in a way that Kickstarter didn't. That's pretty cool, but it's completely different in terms of how we have to think about it relative to everything else. Because if you had a multi-million-dollar acquisition model that's targeted towards like a $60 or $70 box game, like a big box game in blockchain, I actually don't know what those dynamics would look like. Like you'd have to like get venture funding, you'd burn through the money, and I guess you pay it back with the token launch, or you trade it back with OpenSea. Like I don't know.
Yeah, I mean the funny thing is, not all games but a lot of games are token gated or NFT gated. Like you need to own the NFTs to play them. And it's funny now, it's like gone full circle. The buy-in cost is way higher than $50 or $60 ever was, right? So this is like an interesting design trade-off around, how do you let users access your ecosystem? Right. It's a user acquisition question, but it's just funny, Sometimes it's like, now it's $800 if I want to access this game because it's so hyped that that's where the floor price of these NFTs are.
That's actually really funny. It's like to play the sport, you have to. Like it's like to be a race car driver, you have to have a car.
Yeah.
Right. And so that's crazy.
Yeah. All right, cool. Well, I think short and sweet episode. This was great, guys. Thank you for joining me. And so with that, Metacast is out. We hope that you enjoyed it, and we look forward to speaking to you in the next episode.
Nico, what's your Twitter?
At Nico Vereecke, Vereecke.
I'm glad you spelled that one out.
Yeah. What was yours? Well.
I'm at WJ Brooke, WJBROOKE.
Yeah, and I'm at Seb Park, which is really easy.
So easy. I'm jealous. All right, guys, peace out.